Alrighty, welcome to the 164th edition of the MMA Circus here on BloodyElbow.com and live on YouTube. My name is Nick Baldwin. I'm your host as always, and joining me as our guest co-host for the very first time, it is Matheus Costa of MMA Brazil. Matheus, we've known each other for a very long time. You've been on Before the Battle with me, my other show, but you've never found your way on the MMA Circus. I don't believe this is long overdue. Thanks for stepping up on short notice as our guest co-host this week. How are you?
I'm fine, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a really long road for both of us. The last time that we recorded a show together was, I think, almost
November
3 years ago,
2015.
talking about Vitor. Yes, talking about
Vitor and
Vitor
Dan Hendo
Belfort
3,
against
right?
Dan Henderson 3.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Now they're both
And I
retired
thought, and I
apparently.
thought, and yes, but 3 years ago, I bet that Hendo will explode Vitor's face and retire him. But my bet was fucking wrong. So that's a shame. But Leota did the job, so we're cool.
Yeah. How has fatherhood treated you? You're a pretty young person, but you have two kids now, correct? That's crazy.
Yes,
And you
yes.
just had
I'm
a new baby
20,
girl.
20 years old. Yeah, yeah.
Congratulations. How has that been going now
I'm
with
20
two
years
kids?
old. Yeah, man, it's pretty great. The actually being a father is the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right.
I'm just 20 years old. I will make 21 at 6th of June, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me because being a father is changed so much your life as a person. Changed so much the way you see the world, the way you live, because you are responsible for another life. And I'm not talking about your mother and your grandmother or your brother. It's your child. Yeah. So it's a great responsibility. But man, you have some great moments that pay offs. Every smile. I have two little girls. My older has she's right now one year. She has 1 year and 7 months, and I just had my second one. Yeah, she just made 1 month on last Saturday, and man, it's been a great journey, and it affects my MMA career. I've been doing this for a very long time. I think I'm MMA reporter for now like 3 or 4 years. You know, I'm not that popular, especially in United States, in America, just like you, because I said to you this a very long time ago. You are the future of the media, no doubt about it.
Thank you.
And
That means a lot.
I'm not the only one who talks about this. You know that, but you are the future of the media. You are so talented. When we met, you had like 14 or 15 years, and you were in that time so talented. You had a vision. You had a different vision of the rest of the media. You see the sport in a different way. In not only the sport, the media, how the journalism, the MMA journalism should be. And you are so you work so hard, and being a friend of you, is a great thing, man. Seeing where you come right now, man. You are working for Bloody Elbow, man.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't expect that. Trust me, people. Anybody listening, Mateus did not pay me, or I guess I should say the checks in the mail. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And same goes to you. I mean, you're still very young yourself. I mean, you did great things in Brazil. I mean, I think combining your site Olimpo with MMA Brazil was a great move, and
Yes.
I think eventually we'll sort of do a double continent takeover. Maybe we'll combine one sites one day and we'll do North America plus South America. I don't know. We'll see. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Can I give you a little spoiler?
Sure.
Actually, this idea will be will be. How can I say? This idea will come to reality pretty soon.
There you go. You heard it here first on episode 164 of the MMA Circus. Let's get down to what we saw this past weekend. UFC Fight Night 129 in Santiago, Chile. Of course, this was the UFC's first event in South America, not in Brazil. And you're of course Brazilian. You live in Rio de Janeiro, and so did you cover real quick? Did you cover UFC 224?
Yes. It was my first event in like 3 years because I'm not a big fan of. It's just my personal opinion, but I don't like to work like that much in covering the event. In person.
Right, because it
I
costs money and takes time away
Not
from your
really,
family.
man. No, I'm not seeing from this side. You know, yeah, yes, you put a lot of money. Yes, it's a cost, but I rather work in my house. You know, seeing from the outside rather than working from the media room
Yeah.
because of course you could intervene, you could make some interviews, and I did some great interviews at UFC Rio. We cover a lot of interesting stuff, and but I rather just work from my house, because I think that I am better at this role. In don't don't get me wrong, it's pretty cool to cover an event in person. The UFC has a great structure. The UFC has a great production. It's pretty cool to get this credential to work. But I rather see my brother Gabriel Carvalho working at these events because he's a monster. He's just like you. He's the future of the media, of the Brazilian media, and he's reaching out from the outside the country. So he loves to cover some events. He just went to Chile right now, and I rather work from my house.
That's crazy. But yeah, that's great. I mean, I think everyone has different tastes. Anyways, let's get down to UFC Fight Night 29. Of course, we had Damian Maia versus Kamaru Usman in the headliner. 5 rounds of welterweight action. It was, of course, the Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman, perhaps picking up the biggest win of his career, a 49-46 times 2, and I believe a 50-45 even in there as well, decision over Damian Maia. It wasn't the greatest fight. It was a little slow. But I think it was mostly what we expected. I think most people just thought Kamaru Usman would be able to finish Damian Maia, considering Maia is getting up there in age. He's 40 years old, well past his prime, and also took the fight on short notice. What did you think about the main event? And I guess, were there any surprises you saw, or was it pretty much what you expected?
I was expecting a most dominant Kamaru Usman than we just saw. I am the one. I'm not the one who just expected that Usman would be finishing Damian. Damian is a lot of tough fighter. He's very very tough. He's pretty crazy to think that, just like Usman say, Damian's head just broke the two of hands of Usman, man. He is pretty tough. But that was meant to be because everyone knows that Damian has a pretty below average wrestling. He's just a jiu-jitsu star. But as the time passes, you just see the jiu-jitsu fighters struggling to fight like against wrestlers. So Damian has had a tough matchup against Tyron Woodley. Damian had a tough matchup against Kobe Covington. And, just Usman, in my opinion, his wrestling is just great as Woodley is. He's better than Covington, in my opinion. But I was expecting a more dominant Usman. I was starting I was thinking that Usman would knock him out at a position of ground and pound, but as a matter, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's a great win for Usman career. He should get a more tough fight. He likes to say that the entire division are denying him to fight him, but you have to accomplish Damien, because getting Kamaru Usman at short notice, man. Do we have to have you had some, man? It's a tough matchup. It was a tough matchup for Damien if he gets the fight 3 months before. If he had a few camp to face again, to face Usman, it's already a tough matchup for him. But getting this fight 3 years, 3 weeks after 3 weeks, to have a 3 weeks camp, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. So Damian has his props, because it's a very tough matchup, and he won in the first round, in my opinion. But it was just meant to be, man.
Yeah, I mean, Maya, as you said, he probably won the first round. Two judges of three thought so, anyways. And I know most people did score the first round for him, but after that, it was really just all downhill. He slowed down a little bit. Usman. The thing about the performance from Usman is that it never really got any better. There weren't major momentum shifts, or not even shifts, but Usman didn't start to dominate as much as we thought he would. It was just a slow contest, and that's okay. We see that once in a while, but for a guy that's nearly undefeated, he's undefeated in the UFC. He'll be a top 5 welterweight now. I just expected a little more from Kamaru Usman, and I mean it's his style, and so he's not going to go to the ground against a jiu-jitsu ace in Maia, one of the best grapplers in the sport, if not the best, especially a few years back. There's no reason Usman, a wrestler, is going to take him down. But the problem is then we end up with Usman outstriking Maia, and that's two ground fighters on the feet, and it's just never going to end up being a great fight. And so that's kind of what we saw. I simply just thought we'd see a bit more power from Usman. I thought he'd be able to put Maia away late in the fight, maybe the 4th or 5th rounds. We didn't see it. I wasn't all that shocked. I was thinking maybe this could go the distance, but I was hoping for a bit more of an entertaining fight. But that's more just me as a fan than anything. I mean, I want to see good fights, but nonetheless, I think it's a big win for Usman on paper. Maia was still ranked number 5 in the division going in. That even though we all know Maia's on the way down, he's on the curve down. It's still a big win on paper, and so I think we've got to give Usman props for that. And the biggest win of his career. It's, beating Maia isn't the easiest thing to do, and he did it, fairly one-sidedly, fairly decisively. So I think it was an okay performance from Usman. People just expected more, and so it wasn't fantastic. But I'm kind of looking at the welterweight division now after this fight and thinking, okay, there was a time not that long ago when the UFC welterweight division was so promising, and it still is. But the two highest ranked prospects right now are Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. And a lot of people don't like watching either fighter fight. And that might be an issue for the welterweight division. Do you agree?
Can you repeat the final, please?
Yeah, what do you think about the state of the welterweight division? Firstly, a lot of people were saying it's so great, but now the two highest ranked prospects, guys that are still sort of on the way up, Usman and Covington, number 3 and number 5, a lot of people don't enjoy watching their fights.
It's because they are not aggressive as they should be. I really like Usman game. His performance against Maia should be more aggressive, and as a fighter, having his wrestling skills, he should be more aggressive. Okay, his stand-up game isn't the best, just like Compton's, but he should be more aggressive, in my opinion. Especially against Maia, a 4-year-old fighter, a jiu-jitsu fighter with bad wrestling skills, with bad striking skills, is what lack at his performance. Aggressive. He should be more aggressive. And I think people got got used to watch awesome fights at welterweight
Yeah. I
division.
mean, Lawler versus McDonald too, Lawler versus Condit. Any Lawler
Yeah,
fight, Lawler versus
yes,
Hendricks.
yes. Basically, it's Robbie Lawler frauds. It's his fault because he is one of the most entertaining fighters of all time. You know, he's just a star inside the octagon. He's not a big mouth talker, but when he gets in the octagon, man, it's just different. So people watch Robbie Lawler against uh, Rory McDonald, Robbie Lawler against Carlos Condit. Those kind of fights, GSP against Jake Shields with for me was a good fight. But those kind of matchups, you when you see the ranking 2 years ago, you just see killers. Carlos Condit, Roddy McDonald, Robbie Lawler, all those fighters, Wonder Boy getting up on the rankings, and now after those two matchups with Woodley and Thompson, they basically killed the hype for the division. And it is what it is. People don't like to watch wrestlers, and that's kind of sad, especially when they are not aggressive wrestlers. So GSP was a genius. GSP doesn't get in this conversation because his technique was just one other level. But when you see Covington, when you see Usman, you can see potential in both of his games, but they are not aggressive as they should be, and that's right, man. It's just this kind of style, but that style does not convince the fans. The fans want to see blood. The fans want to see great techniques. The fans want to see the great, takedowns, great fights, especially in that division when you get used to watch Robbie Lawler ball in the division. So it's not their fault, and I think that division has a very good, some very good prospects. At UFC Rio, I watched Ramazan Emeev, and I love this guy. I think he will be, man, he will be get far in the division. I think it's just a matter of time that that we see Emeev on the top 10 of the division. And you got guys like Eliseu Zaleski, those kind of fighters. You have some great potential in the division, but right now the top 5 isn't the most exciting as they should be.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just gonna sort of, because UFC Chile wasn't the most stacked card there is. I just want to sort of go through a few fights. I'll just sort of give my quick thoughts on them, and I'll let you sort of go off of me. I thought Tatiana Suarez's win over Alexa Grasso in the co-main event was fantastic. I think Suarez is one of the better female grapplers in the UFC. That rear naked choke she had against Grasso was really impressive. And number 12 in the division, Grasso was number 9. So I assume we'll see Suarez in the top 10 at strawweight. She's a force to be reckoned with at 115. I think she can give most fighters, maybe not quite Rose Namajunas just yet, but I think most fighters definite a run for their money. So I'm interested to see what's next for Suarez. I thought Dominic Reyes' win over Jared Cannonier was great. At light heavyweight, I think Reyes might just be that new blood, might just be that prospect we've been looking for oh so long. I thought Andrea Lee put on a decent performance in her debut. Wasn't anything special, but I think it was a good fight. It one fight at night. I thought this was actually could have just been 4 performances. I think the UFC should have gone with, but nonetheless, I'm happy to see let's be honest, 2 underpaid fighters get paid $50,000 each. I thought Vicente Luque's knockout was great. I thought Pantoja Moreno was really fun. That was that would be my fight of the night if I was deciding it.
Mine too.
I was a little surprised that Pantoja won, to be honest. I thought the Assassin Baby would be able to rebound from their tough fight, the Ultimate Fighter, where Pantoja submitted Moreno. I actually forgot this was a rematch, and so perhaps I shouldn't be surprised. Polyana Botelho, She looked tremendous. That was the quickest women's strawweight win in the UFC ever. Gabriel Benitez was fantastic. And finally, Claudio Puelles, he picked up one of the greatest come from behind victories I've probably ever seen in the UFC. He defeated Felipe Silva via a third round knee bar. He got dominated in the first 2 rounds, especially the second round. There were points in that fight where the referee probably could have stepped in. He didn't. That was okay. But man, Puelles is tough, maybe too tough for his own good, but it's hard saying that when, of course, he got a 50 grand bonus. He got the win, got his first UFC victory. That was oh so impressive. So anything I mentioned, feel free to sort of respond to, give your thoughts on, and I guess anything else I didn't mention that you want to discuss, feel free.
So let's get to the top. I really like Tatiana Suarez. I think her wrestling game is pretty fantastic. I think she will be in just it's just a matter of time that we will see Suarez maybe in the top 5. She is a very talented fighter, and her performance against Grasso, it was a pretty impressive. But I was kind of expecting this, and we had at the MMA Brazil we had the staff picks, and I think only one of the 15 guys was go with Grasso, because Suarez is pretty impressive, and she does not has the recognition prospect as she should get. So that's sad, man. Dominic Reyes, I agree 100% with you. I think he is the new kind of blood in this division, in this dead division, because oh my god, this division needs some great talent, man. They need some names, aggressive names. They need some new prospect, and it's tough for UFC, man, because this division is sad, man. Even the top 15 is sad, but when you get down there, oh man, it's tough to find a real prospect. And Dominic Reyes might be that name that they are looking for. I really like Andrea Lee. I think she is a great prospect. Even back in the day at the Legacy and the LFA, I always thought that it was a matter of time again and to see her at UFC, because she is very talented. She has a great not, but a good jiu-jitsu game. She has a good striking game. I really like her. So I just expect to see more often fighting. I know that she just came back from suspension from USADA, so we'll see. Vicente Luque looked awesome. He is a pretty talented fighter, but I just have a concern about him, because his physique, his gas tank is not as great as should be. Maybe off the weight cut, because he looks pretty big. I never met him personally, but he looks pretty big for the division, you know. But not at the height. Not saying at height, but at muscles, he looks like a heavy guy. So he must suffer to make the weight. But you know, he's not a. I think he will be get a top 15 next.
I think one fight, sorry to cut you off real quick, but one fight that'd be super fun and similar spots in their careers, Luque versus Lesky dos Santos.
Yeah, man. I never thought about that. Yeah, it would be a hell of a fight, man. Especially in Brazil, we have a coming fight. We have a coming event in September, I think, in São Paulo. So will be a hell of a fight, and I think they will agree to fight each other, because they are not friends. We here in Brazil we have this fucking issue, because we are friends, we should not fight each other. And this sucks, man. I know it's tough to fight a friend. I had some issues when I used to train MMA. I knocked down a very a big friend of mine. It was tough to see he knocked out cold, but you know, at the end of the day, you are a professional, and you should fight the fights that make sense for your career. You know, so Vicente Luque against Zaleski would be a hell of a fight, and I would definitely watch it. Um, and you told me about Pantoja. You know, Pantoja Point, man, he is a very talented fighter, and he's better than most of the people think. He's kind of underrated. Underrated, sorry. Uh, I think he should be in that pot of the new fighters in the flyweight division, the new generation of fighters. Just like Moreno, another fight that I love to see his fights. Moreno is a solid prospect, just like Pantoja, but just like their first fights, Pantoja is just at the end of the day he's better. He's more talented. His jiu-jitsu is awesome, but his boxing is growing every he's growing so much. And my last point in this in my last point, Poliana Botelho, man, what a knockout, man, what a knockout, impressive.
No, it really was. I mean, I think I don't remember who it was, but I saw someone had a big bet on that fight, the over, like the over 2.5 rounds, and I think a lot of people were expecting it to go to the judges, but that it did not, and I think Patello definitely has some potential at 115. I mean, 115 is a good division. I mean, Tatiana Suarez has a lot of potential. She's gonna be very close to the top 5 very soon, I think. Patello's a little lower down. She's not ranked, but I still think she could go far in the division as well.
I don't think so because let me interrupt you for one moment. I don't think so because Botelho always fought like a flyweight, so I think she will move up. Back in the day at XFC Brazil, she was their champion at flyweight, and she man, I Poliana is one of the fighters that I knew personally, and man, she looks huge.
Yeah, I mean, even just looking at her stats against Kondo, she was 4 inches taller. The reach for her isn't there, but I assume it's longer as well. She's a big strawweight, so yeah, as she gets older, I wouldn't be shocked as well if she does end up moving up to flyweight. But strawweight or flyweight, I think she has some potential.
Yes. And what do you think about Barzola performance?
That was good. It was, if we're being honest, it was kind of a typical Enrique Barzola fight. He's a very talented fighter. He's just he hasn't gotten many finishes, if any, in the UFC, and so it's hard to stand out when you just keep on decisioning fighters. But hey, I mean, I think his striking is really good. I think his wrestling and his ground game is really good. I think he's a very well-rounded fighter and one of the better fighters coming out of tough Latin America. But I think he needs to really start finishing fights if he wants to make big statements and get recognized more.
I agree.
All right, let's move on to a little talk about Fabricio Werdum. Now, of course, he was booked just yesterday, or either yesterday or the day before. Very recently, he was booked for the UFC Fight Night Moscow, Russia main event against the great Alexei Oleinik, who, of course, is coming off that Ezekiel choke win over Junior Albini a couple weeks ago. That was booked as the Moscow main event. A little surprising because people thought it would be Alexander Volkov, perhaps against the winner of Wolverine Blades, which goes down on June 9th at UFC 225. But c'est la vie, they ended up going with Werdum Oleinik. But news comes out today that Fabricio Werdum was notified of a potential anti-doping violation by the U.S. By USADA. Of course, the UFC anti-doping partner, and he has been, of course, the way USADA works, the way the UFC works, it's you're innocent until proven guilty, and I think that's something really people need to keep in mind. Fabricio Werdum is a controversial figure for many reasons. Of course, his association with Ramzan Kadyrov doesn't help. He's said some certain things, and but I think for that reason, it's easy to put Werdum in a spot in which it's not really fair and say call him a cheater and things like that. We've seen many situations in which people will get busted by USADA and it ends up just being a tainted supplement or something like that. We saw Junior Dos Santos, a little Nog as well, just all recently. So let's give Werdum the benefit of the doubt, but it still is interesting. The fact that he is getting up there in age, the fact that he is coming off a knockout loss to Alexander Volkov a couple months ago. We don't know much about the actual suspension. We don't know much about the actual drug test. All we know is that he tested positive for a substance that is banned under WADA, under USADA, and that's really all we know for now. What do you make of all this? I mean, I don't know how much there is really to say, other than the fact that the Olynyk fight is now off. That won't go on. As far as we know right now, anyways. What do you make of this? What do you make of Werdum testing positive, supposedly?
It's a tough situation for him because he's a 40-year-old fighter. He has a great fan base in Brazil. Of course, as you said, he is a controversial figure because, he is a great guy. He's very funny. He's a very nice guy to make an interview, but his opinions at the end of the day are controversial. He's not only his tie with Kadyrov that speaks for itself, but at Brazil he supports a very controversial figure called Jair Bolsonaro, who's running for presidential at the end of the year, and he's a military guy, he homophobic guy, that kind of person. So Werdum is not as vocal as Paulo the Eraser, né? Costa, Waller Alves, that those kind of guys that support Bolsonaro. But you seeing this, you get the point, So it's a tough situation. We had Werdum at our podcast. We had we record our podcast live at at our studio in São Paulo, the MMA Brazil podcast. Just to be clear. And 2 months ago, we had Werdum in our studio live, and man, what a hell of an interview it was. He told us about a lot of stories. He's a very funny guy, but he told us that he doesn't cut weight anymore. And you can look at that. You could see it because when you look at his physique against Cain Velasquez, he was more thin. He was more ripped.
Oh yeah.
Last fight against Volkov, and even that against Walt Harris, he looked more soft. He looks more fat. And he told us that his weight cut is based on McDonald's, so burgers and ribs and those kind of things. So when you stop to think about this, a fight that doesn't cut weight anymore, getting coming for a very impressive knockout loss. I don't think he of course, I'm not defending him because I don't know the situation. I don't know even the substance that he's accused to use. But man, I don't think that's the case, man. I don't really think it's a very new news. A news that came along today. And actually, we didn't have much time to think about to see the situation as itself. So it's pretty soon to talk anything about this. But the guy doesn't cut weight anymore. The guy is and it seems to not it, he seems to getting to having fun in his career. I don't think he's take that serious as he used to take 2 years ago. I'm not talking. I'm not giving any excuses, but I don't think that's the case. But if he, let's say, Verdun used some kind of, he really did use some substance. Man, that's tough because he has some kind of legacy here in Brazil. He may invented the biggest event in the UFC history in Brazil, you know, UFC 198. Okay, he got knocked out. That's okay, but he really has a big fan base. He's a well-known guy in Brazil, and it's a tough blow for Brazilian MMA again, because MMA in Brazil is lacking of stars. And MMA is lacking of stars. Jose Aldo is not a big star as he used to be. Anderson Silva is not a is not a big star as he used to be. Not in the shadow as he used to be, because he used to be pretty big, a pretty big name in Brazil. And when you talk about Anderson these days, you talk, he was a fraud. Of course, he still has some fans, but the feeling with him is not the same anymore. And again, the Brazilian idols are getting older and older, and Brazil doesn't have as much championship titles as they used to have. So I think Verdun, if the situation is confirmed, it's a tough blow to MMA in Brazil, because another idol caught in doping by USADA, another idol that get his image trashed because doping is a doping, and it's a tough blow for Brazilian MMA, definitely.
Let's move on to UFC Fight Night 130. It goes down in Liverpool, England this Sunday night, Sunday afternoon, actually. 1 p.m. Eastern Time is the start of the six-fight main card, so it's an early card, nice and early, and I think we need more of those cards where they don't go on till midnight or 1 a.m. That kind of sucks. But this is a very it's not the best card, but the main event, I love this main event. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Darren Till in the welterweight division. This could be a number one contender fight. I don't think it will be, just because we have Dos Anjos versus Covington for the interim title next month. But and of course the champion Tyron Woodley is still sidelined. But Wonderboy is ranked number 1. Darren Till's ranked number 8. The winner of this is right up there. And Thompson has been, but what a big win this would be for Till if he's able to pull off the slight upset. Just give me your thoughts on that main event firstly, and I mean, we're not going to go through the most of the card or the full card as we sometimes do, just because again, a lot of these fights aren't necessarily worth talking about. But before anything, I guess just talk about Wonderboy versus Darren Till a little bit, and who ultimately you will be picking.
Oh, it's a very fun matchup. I'm actually very excited to see this fight, because it's a pretty intriguing fight, because both Till and Wonderboy, they have some different styles, different striking styles, because Till is a more boxing guy. Of course he has some pretty dope Muay Thai skills, and he kicks a lot. His boxing is very good. He's a pretty straightforward fighter. He doesn't have to hit. He has the ability to cut the space in pretty much a second. We saw what he's doing against the rest of the division, and his rise is pretty impressive, man. Because he's a very talented fighter, but I was not expecting a meteorical rise as he's getting. But about the matchup, I'm going with Darren Till, because I really like Wonderboy's style. He's a hell of a fighter, but if he has one problem with his striking game, is his defensive boxing. He doesn't got a lot of head movement, and Woodley, I think Woodley exposed him, and he likes to kick a lot. His game is based on his karate style, taekwondo style, but at the end of the day, I think Till will get the UFC do the UFC.
Very interesting. I'm gonna go with Wonder Boy. Really close fight. I'm looking forward to it, but I think Stephen Thompson. Now, I don't know if he'll have his number in this fight, but I think it's going to be a pretty tough fight for Darren Till to win. Darren Till might be a little more powerful, and his stance, his style is similar to Wonder Boy's, but I think just Wonder Boy has mastered it a little bit better than Till. Thompson's been around for a lot longer. He's fought better competition. He's fought for the welterweight title not just once but twice. He's come up short both times against Woodley. One was a draw. One was a majority decision. Both were super close. Both could have been scored for for Woodley. I mean, either way, very close fight. But Darren Till, his biggest win is a knockout over Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Now, that's a big win, but Cerrone's certainly on the way out, and Thompson just has better wins. He's fought better competition, and I think that means something here. He's been around longer, as I said. He has the experience that Till doesn't have. Now, Till's undefeated. That has to count for something, but I think just stylistically, Thompson does what Till does, but even better, if that makes any sense. I think Darren Till's a great striker. I think he has a lot of power in his hands and in his kicks, but I think Thompson might just be a little more technical, a little more precise, and I think he'll be able to decision Darren Till in what really could be a fun fight. I don't know if this won't be a barn burner, this won't be a back and forth brawl, but I think as far as technique goes, this will be a lot of fun, and I'm very looking forward to it. I mean, as far as their height and reach, it's basically dead even. It's not like one guy's going to have an advantage physically over the other. It's probably just going to be a striking affair. I'd be surprised if this goes to the ground. I think it'll be 25 minutes of striking, and I'm excited about that. I can't wait for this fight. It's been on my radar ever since it was announced, and even before it was announced. Because remember, there was a long time when Wonder Boy kept saying no, he didn't want to fight Darren Till, and when you remember when Dana White announced it, but it wasn't really official, and so I've been looking forward to it for quite some time. Let us go to the co-main event of the evening. We have newcomer Craig White against number 9 welterweight in the UFC, Neil Magny. I don't know anything about Craig White. I assume you probably don't either. Do you know who Craig White is?
No, I'm not.
No, and just based off that, though, I mean, his record isn't anything to write home about. He's 14-7 as a UFC debutante. I would assume if I look at his record, he's won quite a few in a row, but Neil Magny, that is a tough debut for just about anybody. I mean, Neil Magny, he's long for the division. He has an 80-inch reach. That's quite incredible. He's super tall, and he's a good fighter. His grappling's very good. His wrestling's very good. He has some submission skills. His striking has gotten better. He fights, using his reach. He fights quite lanky. He's long. I think Neil Magny's probably just going to wipe the floor with Craig White. I think he beats him probably everywhere. Now, is it sort of not the best of me to say that just because not knowing much about White? Perhaps so. Maybe Craig White does pull off the upset, but it'd be a big win for Craig White if he gets it done, and I'm not too sure he will. Do you have anything to add on to that?
No, I don't. I have the same point of view because I really like watching Neil Magny fights, and he's more, at the end of the day, he's more talented. Craig White, I respect the guy for taking this fight. It's a very tough matchup for him because taking Neil Magny on short notice, man, that's crazy. But I think Magny will secure the win pretty easily.
Anything else on this card you want to talk about? Anything you're excited about? I think one good fight is Jason Knight versus Makwan Amirkhani. I think that'll be a fun fight. Davey Grant versus Manny Bermudez. I mean, both guys are sort of lower level in the UFC right now at bantamweight, but I think that could be a fun grappling fight. Interestingly, I'm actually kind of excited for Eric Spicey versus Darren Stewart. Both guys need wins badly. Dan Kelly, welcomes back Tom Breese to the UFC. Now, the interesting thing about this fight, not only is it a fairly intriguing matchup because Dan Kelly somehow wins fights that he probably shouldn't win, but Tom Breese has been away for a very long time. His last fight was, let me check. I mean, it was quite some time ago. Was it the Keita Nakamura fight? He must have had a fight since then, I would think. And of course, it's not loading. Let me see here. Tom Breese's last fight was the loss to Sean Strickland, June 4th, 2016. It's been nearly 2 years. That was before Rockhold got knocked out by Michael Bisping. And so he was supposed to fight Oluwale Bamboshe a little while back, but he pulled out last minute for personal issues. I think he's had confidence issues and things like that. Now, I don't know the full story. I don't think anyone does, but I'm very intrigued to see how Tom Breese looks in this fight, considering the layoff, considering what he's gone through. So that's definitely a fight to watch out for. A lot of people are talking about Molly McCann. She's, of course, coming off, this is her debut. She's from Liverpool. She was the Cage Warriors champion. There's a lot of anticipation around her debut. What else sort of stands out to you? What are you looking forward to the most for UFC Liverpool?
I'm excited to see Molly McCann debut because I knew her. I actually met her at Brazil when she came to fight at XFC in São Paulo against Vanessa Melo. I think that fight would happen 3 years ago, and she lost the fight. But she looked very skilled for me. I think she was at the occasion 1-1, actually something like that, and she she grew a lot as a fighter, and she will win the fight. A fight that I was hoping to you to mention, but you didn't mention, and I kind of want to see what happens because I really like this guy, is Arnold Allen against Mads Burnell. I really like Arnold Allen. I think she doesn't get the recognition that she should get because he's a very talented guy, man. Of course, Amir Khan against Jason Knight is a hell of a fight. One of those fights that you you don't most of the fans doesn't know the fighters, but it's that kind of fight pass fight. When you watch, you see that is a great fight, and it's interesting that this fight is on the main card. So I think it will be a great fight to the fans to watch. And Manny Bermudez, I really like this guy. He's a very tough matchup for Devin Grant. So that's another fight that I want to see. It's a very solid card. I was expecting a little more. I'm kind of disappointed that I was just expecting more valuable names. Maybe Michael Bisping, maybe those kind of fighters. But at the end of the day, is a very solid card, and I think we will have some great matchups.
Yeah, you mentioned Arnold Allen. That's definitely a fight I forgot to mention, as you said. I think his return is very interesting as well, as you mentioned, just because he's been out for a very long time. Arnold Allen, he last fought in March 2017 when he beat Makwan Amirkhani, who, of course, is on this card, as we talked about briefly. Arnold Allen, since that fight, has gotten arrested. I believe he was in a bit of a fight or a bar fight, something like that. I should definitely make sure I'm not, not lying, but have the facts straight. But he was definitely arrested for something. It got cleared up, so he's okay now. He didn't have to spend jail time or anything like that. As far as I know, it got all cleared up. But let's be honest. I mean, it's still a layoff. He's still been out for 14 months or so. And so he was a very, very top prospect after that Amirkhani win. He looked really good in that fight. And so I hope the layoff doesn't really affect him too much. I hope everything else he's gone through doesn't really affect him, because I think, I hope he's able to sort of continue where he, left off a little bit, if that makes sense. I think if he's able to be as good, if not better than he was 14 months ago, he probably beats Mads Burnell firstly, but I think he he definitely has a good shot to do some pretty big things in the featherweight division. I mean, 145 is stacked right now, so you pair Allen up against Mirsad Bektic or Alexander Volkanovski. I don't know if he gets the job done, but he's young. He's still only 12-1. He's training at TriStar in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Great gym for him. I think there's a lot of potential in almighty Arnold Allen. As far as UFC Liverpool, that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess we could talk a little more about the main event. I feel like we barely did it justice. What do you think is next for the winner between Wonderboy Thompson and Darren Till? Just because, as I said a little briefly, it's not super clear. We have Tyron Woodley. He should be coming back pretty soon. We have Rafael dos Anjos versus Colby Covington for the interim welterweight title next month at UFC 225 in Chicago, Illinois. So it seems like the winner of Woodley versus that fight will fight each other for the undisputed title. But that leaves the winner of this fight, who will be right up there in the top 5, if not higher, sort of not left to dry, but they might need to take another fight. They might need to sit out and wait a little bit. What do you feel is next for the winner of Wonderboy versus Darren Till?
Kamaru Usman. I think that's
not a bad idea.
I think it's not a great matchup style for both of us, both of the fighters, because Darren Till and Wonderboy doesn't have the skills, the wrestling skills that Usman has, as does Usman doesn't have the striking skills that both those guys have. But I think when you look at the rankings, of course, the rankings doesn't mean shit. The UFC doesn't care about the rankings anymore. I don't even know if they ever did care about the rankings. But they looked at a long time ago. They looked at they give a damn about the rankings. At this moment, they really I think that the idea of the rankings is pretty much that for them. But because when you see the rankings, the number 2 is fighting the number 9. But of course, it's a really good matchup. But I think that made sense, because Rafael dos Anjos is fighting Colby Covington next month for the interim title, and I really don't understand why they made the interim title. But okay, no problem. And I think because if Usman doesn't fight the winner of this fight, who will Usman fighting? Because if you put Usman to fight a fighter that is ranked above him, do you think that Usman would be not happy? But I think you should give his title shot. He should get a more solid opponent, a top opponent. So it's time. It's time to really test him against a tough fighter, because I really don't see any another fight that makes sense at this moment for Usman that is not the winner of Till and Wonderboy.
Yeah, I think Usman's a good option. I think that's a good idea. Wonderboy versus Usman would be a lot of fun, just stylistically. Usman the wrestler, Wonderboy the striker. I think the same goes for Darren Till versus Usman. That might be even more fun. I wouldn't be opposed if they go back to Usman versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, to be honest. I know Ponzinibbio got hurt, and so maybe Usman wants to move on. But hey, I like that matchup. I like Usman Ponzinibbio. I like Usman versus the main event winner. And I think Usman versus a Wonderboy or Till probably makes a bit more sense at this point in time, just because he is in the top 5 now, and the winner of Wonderboy Till will be as well. And so, I think they could do Woodley versus RDA Covington winner, who I believe will be RDA. So Woodley versus RDA, and then I think they'll do Wonderboy Till winner, which I think will be Wonderboy, and I think they'll do that fight, that winner against Usman, and I think you do the winner of those two. And I know we're going so far off into the future, but I think eventually you probably end up with Woodley versus RDA and Wonderboy versus Usman, and that'll decide to the next title fight. But that's a little into the distance. But I think that's probably what will happen. Is there anything else you want to say? Anything else about UFC Liverpool? I know we were going to talk about Ian Rodriguez. I'm going to say that for a future show, but we talked a little bit about Fabricio Werdum. If there's anything you want to say about Chile, UFC Chile, that was anything I missed, yeah. Is there anything else you feel like we should cover?
No, I don't think so, man. I really don't think so. I think we got everything that we needed. Of
It's
course,
a
it
bit of a
would
slow
be
news week, so yeah.
yes, of course, it would be fun to talk about year, but the time is tough, and we understand.
Absolutely. Well, Matheus, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. Thank you to everybody listening and watching. If you're watching on YouTube, for tuning in, we appreciate that as well. If you enjoyed this podcast, go give it a big thumbs up down there. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, I really appreciate that. You can also do that down there as well. If you have any feedback for the show, for episode 164 of the MMA Circus or any previous episodes, go drop a message in the comment section down below, and I will respond to you if needed. Matheus, thanks again for stepping up on short notice. Really appreciate it. It was great to talk to you again. Just remind everybody where they can get a hold of you on social media, and of course, a plug away as far as MMA Brazil and anything else you got going on.
Thank you very much, man. It's a huge honor for me to come back to the show. Of course, not the same show, but to come back to have a conversation with you. As I said, you are a very talented guy, and if you're watching this podcast, please follow Nick's work. This guy should get more recognized. So subscribe to the channel, follow more, watch those past podcasts. This is one of the best podcasts in the media right now. It's a really fun podcast. So you should leave a comment below. You should give us a thumbs up, and stay tuned. It's a very funny podcast. Uh, I really like to thank you again. It was a very great opportunity to come back to talk with you. Almost 3 years later, you should invite me more. You should invite me more.
I really should. I don't know what I'm thinking when I invite you 2.5 years later. I don't know.
No problem. I'm just joking. But it was very nice to talk with you, man. Yeah, I really like, and it was a very fun podcast, and I hope I can come back in the near future. So no, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
And sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot. If you have some interest to see a Brazilian guy talking some shit in English and both in Portuguese, you could follow me at Matheus Costa MMA at Instagram, Twitter. I am way more active at Twitter, and of course I am an editor for MMA Brazil, one of the most recognized outlets in Brazil, covering MMA and jiu-jitsu, wrestling. We cover almost everything. So follow our work at MMA Brazil with S, not Z, because the name of our country is with S, not Z. So, but as I said in the beginning of the show, we might in a very near future, we might have some big news for our English fans. We just got some American writers, as I don't know if you know these guys, but Nolan King.
Yep, I do.
A very big friend of mine. Big Tony from MMA Today too, and we just bring. I think you know this guy, John King.
Of course.
Of course, another nice guy, and we are working to have an English version pretty much soon. I promise this year we MMA Brazil will have a English version, an English website with we of course we want to bring our content to the American fans, but we have a exclusive team to write about, and we have we'll have some fun. I guarantee you that. So you can follow at Twitter, Facebook, at MMA Brazil, and our site was mmabrazil.com.br.
There you go. And real quick before I plug my stuff, there's a guy in the chat named Liam Hughes. You probably don't know him, but he's an avid listener of the show, and I appreciate it all the time. But he always likes when we talk about the weather. I'm curious, you're way down in Rio de Janeiro. The weather must be gorgeous right now, is it not?
No. It's pretty cold right here.
Really?
Man, because yes. Rio de Janeiro is a very hot city. I think everybody knows that. But it's been pretty cold in Rio in the recent days, and of course, not as cold as in Canada and America. But when you get used to 40 Celsius, when you get used to go to the beach every week, when you get used to sweat in more often days, when you get some cold wind, it's tough. But I really like the cold weather, but not everybody in Rio. I can assure you that.
Yeah, I just checked. It's 21 degrees Celsius in Rio, so that's not that bad. But in Winnipeg, it's actually 28, so it's warmer in Winnipeg here in Canada than Rio. So,
you should consider one point for Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, that's really cold. I know.
Yes.
And for us, 28 is quite hot. So,
we get used to in the summer. A normal day in the summer would get 38, 39 degrees. On a heavy day, we get almost 350.
Wow, that's crazy. 46. Once in a while, Winnipeg will get to 40. That's pretty rare. I mean, once or twice a summer, but yeah, usually 30 degrees is about average, maybe a little less. But
imagine when you woke up at 9 a.m. and you're going to the school or the work, and you at 9 a.m. you get 35 degrees. 9 a.m. It's crazy. And the shit happens every day. So I really don't like the heavy weather that we got here, but it happens.
You gotta deal with it. Well, anyways, you guys can find me on Twitter at Nick Baldwin MMA. You can find all of my writing over at bloodyelbow.com. And of course, once again, subscribe to the Circus YouTube channel here right now, and give us a big thumbs up on this video down there. You can find the MMA Circus on bloodyelbow.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Google Play, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Player FM, Overcast, Podcast Addict, and pretty much anywhere else you can find a podcast. So check that out. Go rate us, review, subscribe. Like us, favorite us, anything else you can do it. Thank you so much. I'd appreciate that. As far as what I got going on, as far as interviews go, I just talked to Claudio Puelles, who of course won that big fight at UFC Chile last weekend. I'll be talking to a smaller, lesser-known fighter in Daniel Swain later tonight. Tomorrow, I will be talking to Jose Shorty Torres, who just signed to the UFC. Finally, long overdue, but better late than never. And I also have another interview tomorrow night as well. I just posted interviews with Gegard Mousasi and Costello Vanstinas. That is on the YouTube channel, and will be on Bloody Elbow very soon. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you, Matheus, once again for taking the time. It's great catching up, and thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it. From Matheus Costa, I'm Nick Baldwin, and we're out.